My next, maybe my last recommendation, is a series from, uh, I guess the original adaptation was like 2002, 2003. GetBackers. It's one that maybe a lot of people
Ooh, I've heard of that.
overlooked, but when it ran, it was actually fairly popular. Popular enough to get a second season. Though if you watch it the second season is really more of just a set of standalone events and doesn't really tie as strongly into the original manga, which ran for about 6 or 7 years. It also the show ran concurrent to the manga, and then
Oh,
sort of ended before it. And so it's one of those cases of like a show that got a TV only ending. The plot of Get Backers follows two characters, Ban Mido and Ginji Amano. Both of them are sort of titular Get Backers. Their job is to go find stuff and return it. It seems like a fairly straightforward setup for some episodic shonen action, and in the beginning, that's exactly what it is. But sort of at the midpoint of the first season, it very quickly branches into almost like utopian sci-fi, where you learn quite a bit about the world that you thought was being presented to you was in fact a computer simulation. And from that point on, it both gets weirder and more interesting. Sort of touching on different ideas about like what the meaning of existence, and um, it was actually one of my earliest introductions in anime to characters who were ambiguous with their presentation, both like gender and in other ways. And in
oh,
fact,
so I was
even though it
definitely
was
gonna ask
not
about
pitched
that.
or necessarily produced as like a boys love type feature, it wound up becoming
Yes.
very popular. At least the manga did, with fans of that genre, to the point where the original uh, uh, writer started to sort of bend some of the plots and characters in that direction, just to satisfy the interest of that fan base. So, and done in a pretty tasteful way. But at the end of the day, it's still a shonen. There's still plenty of sort of supernatural action. The abilities of the various characters are really cool. It's interesting that I wound up watching this before I'd ever heard of Hunter x Hunter, but there are so many cues now that I think about it that tell me that Yuya Aoki, who was the original writer,
Yeah.
must have taken some direction from that series, and overall does not come off as like a cheap copy, because they're limited, but still it's cool to sort of dig into that area of that bit of time, basically the late 90s and early 2000s, that produced a lot of somewhat derivative but still fairly original action anime and manga. So I do recommend Get Backers. You can just watch the first season. It's pretty faithful to the manga. The second season it's okay. But if you only want to watch one thing, I would just say watch that, and you can clear it out pretty fast. I don't think the English dub is very good, so I would stick with the original voices.
Got it. So I definitely was gonna be like, I've heard of this, and I've heard of it in boys' love circles.
You probably did.
So so I was just like, huh. Okay. And then eventually you brought that up, and I was like, okay, now this makes sense. Because I've looked at that before, and I've kind of just been like, what? Boys love? This doesn't look like boys love. And then later on, after doing more research, I was just like, oh, so the Fujoshis kind of made it boys love.
Yes, basically.
Got it. They made it what they wanted it to be. And the author was like, yes, give me money. Whatever. I get it. Okay. Um,